welcome to Tometoo Academy, a project proudly co-financed by the European Union through the Erasmus Plus program. If you're still with us and you have found value, we really appreciate your commitment to not just being here, but being on top of what we have to offer, and also on, providing yourselves with the opportunity of learning about these topics. Because when it comes to, digital marketing and all of the elements that are in it, they really are, as we continually say, really a part of just marketing ourselves as professionals, or to help to open doors with what could be a venture that we might have in mind, or towards building that ideal position or that ideal line of work that we want to go ahead and fulfill. So today we're going to be focusing on one of my personal favorite subjects, which is copywriting. Now, copywriting might either seem very familiar yet very simple, or it might just be kind of a little bit alien to you. So today we're going to dive into the concepts behind it, what it is, and really just very easily jump into those magic formulas. Because for as many times that we have been told that there's not a magic formula for things, this is one of the few topics where there actually are magic formulas that help us to navigate and to better position our messages. So without further ado, let me go ahead and share my screen with you. And please let me know when you are able to see it. Perfect. So again, welcome to Tometoo Academy. And again, we really do appreciate you being here with us and taking the time to allow us to come into your through your computers and teach you the basics on digital marketing and all of these elements. So copywriting. Copywriting is, we'd like to call it a strategy for persuasion. Why persuasion? Copywriting is the effort that goes behind every communication that compels our users or our target audience into taking a specific action that we want them to take. It is normally done through several channels, and it's a very interesting sort of not play on emotions, but it is a way of understanding some human behavior, or specifically the human behavior that is behind our users, and in a way tapping into that to help us get their attention. But let's go into the basic of it. What is copywriting? So copywriting is nothing more than the process of actually creating texts that are persuasive, that are compelling, and that, again, help to drive the user to take that action that we want them to take. Now, normally, this is something that is very linked to either marketing, like hardcore marketing, or direct sales. But it's something that is much more open nowadays to just finding that style of writing or copywriting to compel our users to know us, to identify themselves with us, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we could do this, as I was saying, through several different channels. There's copywriting for emails, there's copywriting for websites, there's copywriting for catalogs, advertisement, business letters, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And these are really cool. They're called it's called copywriting because the text which is generated is normally called a copy. A copy is something that, well, not something, it is an actual text that has been identified as it being used in one very specific channel and for one very specific topic. And the person that creates this is normally known as a copywriter. Ergo, copywriting as the action verb. So, what is exactly that we look to generate through copywriting? So when used with all of these marketing tactics that we've spoken about, Copywriting can really help move people through that funnel that we've identified. Now, we've talked about the funnel before. It's a very core marketing term, but it's basically just identifying the different degrees of knowledge that people actually have of either our product, our business, or ourselves. And where in those varying degrees, we are or they are closer to us being able to just be really persuasive and really be able to, not just a casual conversation, but perhaps start moving people into a very specific call to action. Just to give you a really brief example, in our organization where we promote EU placements and EU volunteering placements specifically, sorry. Our call to action is always to go ahead and have people sign up for these volunteerings, no? So of course, our funnel looks a lot like the first degree up top is just giving them general education on the programs that they could do these mobilities through. So for example, teaching them about ESC, the conditions related to ESC. Then the second degree might be answering some of the most common questions as to why you would do a European Solidarity Corps and how it could impact your life positively. In the third degree and the second degree, we might be a little bit more pushy, and we might just be, using wording such as, what are you waiting for? Your opportunity is now. We might make mention of the fact that the program is limited by age, and that the sooner that you're able to do this, the better that it will be able to the sooner it will be able to have an impact in your life, specifically in your professional life. So we start incorporating all of these things, and that's what that funnel allows us to do. It's just allowing us to understand who we're targeting and who we're targeting in that funnel and where they are, which will then determine exactly how we're going to speak to them. And that's really what copywriting is at the end of the day. It's understanding how you're going to speak to them based on, again, where they are on the funnel, perhaps the channels that we're communicating that through with them through, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So obviously, we're talking about many elements that we've been talking about in the previous sections, very linked to marketing. And also SEO content. So remember that SEO is search engine optimization. Why search engine optimization? Well, very specifically because we are going to go ahead and be using keywords that we normally have identified, and that we might have our websites, or that we might have some of our articles that we read that we create. So everything is super intertwined in this sense. So just remember that the nature of your products and services, in addition to the individual goals that you set, again, will dictate the type of text that you should be creating. Okay, so just keep that in mind. And let's talk about this action reaction that we look to have through copywriting. So if we're communicating with them, that means that we have a very concrete message that we are conveying to them. And normally that concrete message will always have either a very direct call to action, or will be gently compelling our users to either think about something or to directly do something, to push a button, to subscribe, to reply, to like, all of these things. So we always like to quote Sir Isaac Newton at this point and remind everybody that for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. Okay, so that's just a way of putting into context what we are able to achieve through copywriting. And then we like to start by identifying either ourselves or the type of business that we are, either because it's ours or that we are working on it. And the first sort of criteria is understanding who that end customer is. And here's where we touch on either B2B or B2C, which sounds either algebraic or it sounds a little bit related to chemistry, but none of those things. So B2B companies are those organizations whose business model is to sell products or services to other companies. So, for example, legal entities or direct providers specific specific materials, right? And then we have the B2C companies, which sell solutions directly to the end customer, meaning to natural persons or individual persons. So this could be, for example, Amazon as a vendor is a great thing. Amazon is not normally made for businesses to go in there and buy in bulk. They're made to give the individual access to either unique or very common products, and on top of that, of course, they have the added benefit of providing the ready-made solution on the delivery method of this. So this is a really good first criteria in understanding uh, or in understanding what type of copywriting we're going to be doing. Why is that? When you're talking about a business that is that has a business model on B2B, that means that we're allowed to use a lot of technical jargon or a lot of industry words based on on that company that we are targeting or on the individuals that we are targeting, who belong to that sector or who are consumers of those goods in a professional capacity, versus a B2C where why am I talking about perhaps the make of a product or the materials behind a product and how they are cost effective when the end user perhaps cares a little bit more about how it impacts their daily life. So if you're able to understand that and really sort of exploit that, then you understand how this is definitely that first criteria that we should be understanding, that is behind the business that we are copywriting for. So normally, like I said, there's different channels which determine sort of different types of copywriting. I do prefer to call these channels, but we do have them identified here as types of copywriting. So the first one is email. Obviously, with email, you have an infinite number of characters. There really is no limit except for the understanding that if you're doing a cold contact, meaning you're just sending emails to everyone and anyone, you have a really short time to grab people's attention. So that makes the the need for the copywriting to be that much more compelling a must. Then we have social networks. So social networks, as we all know and we've mentioned here many, many times, these are sort of the most popular, um, the go-to channels for businesses and individuals. Why? Because everybody's sort of mixed there, and it's great because an individual can directly go ahead and be in contact with either a product or their favorite brand that they identify with or identifies them as as a common interest with others, and or their lifestyle, so to say. Then we have types of, this is really a type of copywriting here. So this is SEO. So not so much a channel, although if we were going to identify the channel here, we would be talking perhaps blog articles, we would be talking about creating an ad or promoting one of our publications or one of our posts. Why? Because SEO directly is, again, search engine optimization. And when we copyright for SEO, normally repetition tends to be the exercise. Repetition of what, you might ask? Well, repetition is of the keywords that we've identified that we either really want Google to go ahead and when they're indexing our page to recognize that that's what we're talking about, and which of course reflect the user's searching behavior. Then we have blogs very specifically. Now, blog as a channel, very much like an email, you do have infinite number of characters that you can actually go ahead and use. You can be it could be a long blog post or it could be a short blog post, but it's a very specific sort of channel slash type of copywriting that we're doing, and we should have that. very much present. Then we have websites. So websites obviously are massive. You know, you have to understand whether you're writing a brief description or whether you're writing an article or whether you're describing a section. So here you do have to understand sort of, again, first and foremost, who you're talking to and how you're talking to them, but then just the general idea of, you know, what they're looking at and what this type of copywriting entails. Meaning, if it's copywriting, just to set an example, let's say that it's an about us. You know, it's great to have perhaps some historical context, but perhaps they didn't go there for a history lesson. Perhaps they're more interested in understanding what the company does, who the company is made for, meaning are they B2B or are they B2C? Because it could be the case of a company who sells wholesale, for example. So me as an individual, I already know that perhaps I won't be able to, you know, meet the minimum requirements for what they're willing to ship because I'm not going to use all of that, just to give you an example. So it's a great section to sort of understand that within websites, there's many different sections, but as many different sections as there are, as many different types of copywritings as you may need to implement. But as a general rule, it's just always good to, you know, separate everything and understand sort of the purpose behind it. Um, so yes, so another word that we've talked about a lot in these past modules that we've covered has been conversion. Now, conversion is basically the action, or well, the action that a user takes, which is exactly what we wanted them to do. So it's basically the purpose behind the copywriting that we are actually doing. And conversion is something that we should have very clear because it's very linked or directly linked to the objective. So what's the objective behind this copy? Is it to go visit a different website or to come to, you know, to come look at the selection that we have? Is it to go to that website to register? Is it to sign a petition? What is it? Because that's going to, what's the objective? Because that's going to determine what your conversion is. And conversion is really sort of a KPI, so meaning a key performance indicator on whether that was a successful copywriting or not. There actually could also be A/B testing with copywriting, meaning trying to understand which type of copywriting might be more compelling to your type of users. So yeah, and you know, when we're talking about conversion, this is when we go into that magic formulas that are actually tried and true. Uh, when throughout time, we've been sort of having this general exercise, and the people, many smart people, much smarter than we are, you know, sort of tried and proved some very functional and very easy to implement formulas behind copywriting. And that's what we're going to go ahead and do now. Now, what we're going to do is sort of visit the main ones. So we're going to do about 4 of them on this particular video. But remember that you do have this whole presentation as a resource that you can download or view online right here on our platform. And you're going to have actually a good amount of those formulas. Some of them are variations on the first 4 formulas. So we want to go, that's why we're going to go ahead and show you that core. But they could serve very different purposes in their different variations. And it's very interesting to be able to comprehend this. Okay. Just as a general tip, if by any chance you are helping yourself with, let's say, any AI or generative tools, being able to identify the formula that you want, the text that you're feeding it and you want it to perhaps improve, and letting it know that you want it in this formula format, it will be able to work with your own text, but it will be a great prompting exercise to get exactly what you want. So leaving that in your hands there, just as a little side note, because we do know that AI is ever present nowadays, But let's jump into some of those formulas. So the first one, which is normally called the granny, the granny of all formulas, is called AIDA, which also kind of sounds like like a granny name. So this formula is one of the most used and the base for many of the other formulas that we will show you. So like I said, this, throughout copywriting, there's about 4 or 5 main formulas. And then there's about 20 more formulas. However, all of these tend to be a variation. The interesting thing is that those different variations could really serve very different purposes. So it's kind of up to you to explore which one might best suit your business and which might be more compelling to your end user. So AIDA. So what does AIDA stand for? So AIDA stands for attention, interest, desire, and action. Attention being the part where the reader is going to stop what they're doing to go ahead and read your text. So this is kind of the attention grabber. Then there's interest, and that's getting your reader hooked on your copy and wanting to know a little bit more. So it's kind of like you've got their attention, but then you have to go ahead and develop their interest. So your second statement should be as compelling, maybe not necessarily as impactful as the first one, but it needs to go ahead and be compelling. Then desire. And this is when you plant in their heads that voice that tells them, oh, shut up and take my money. Or simply put, I want this that you have to sell or that you're offering. Okay. Then we have action, and that's the moment when you have to strike when the iron's hot, because that's basically when, after you've generated that impact, after you've generated that interest, and after they're basically very convinced on how cool your product is, then you have to go in there and tell them exactly what they need to do to get it. And that's the action part. So it's really interesting that it's very simple. And, some of us might even say, well, this is kind of, you know, we kind of knew this. We may know this, but when we're sitting down to write and we're standing there in front of a blank piece of paper, this could be a lifesaver because it's a great sort of roadmap as to, those specific things that we need to develop. Copywriting can really be something simple, but it can be quite difficult sometimes. Again, specifically, I personally have had that moment of, staring at the blank page, and then you get there full of ideas, and the minute you look at that cursor blinking, none of them are there. So having a roadmap to follow is really, really a good idea. So we started with AIDA, and let's see what is next. So let's just get the presentation going. Perfect. So this is PASS. So PASS is the best formula for selling anything and one of the most used. Really, it's quite simple, so it's really well adapted to perhaps some platforms that limit the amount of characters that you can have, such as tweets on X, for example. And it really can be as short as 3 lines. So PAS specifically stands for problem, agitation, and solution. The problem is, well, so first thing is to talk about, the potential worries that that potential customer or client of yours may have. What keeps you up at night, or even if they or them do not know it. Then there's agitation, which is sort of a small statement where we really maximize the problem, or we really capitalize on them having identified with that first impactful statement that outlines the problem for them. And then we move straight into the solution, which is, the time to make your product or service known, and not just known, it's actually the solution to the problem that you've helped them to identify. So it's easy breezy, beautiful. It's a great formula. This can work in many different ways. One of the most common questions that we get is, I get that there's a specific order for it, and that's true, and there is a purpose behind it, and the fact that it's been, tried and true should let us know that if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But if you do want to play around, specifically with the first two or three formulas that we have for specifically the longer ones that have more elements to them. Because really sort of playing around with some of these could really help to benefit. Of course, it can be very counterintuitive, as is the example here, where I'm not going to start agitating a problem before I have actually identified. So do be careful, but do feel free to experiment and do feel free to make mistakes. There's really nothing wrong in learning how your target audience may react to different variations. After this, we have the features, advantages, and benefits. And this is really easy, sort of like pass. However, this is much more rooted in the positive. Why? Because we focus on what's unique about our offer. Even if it's a product or a service, whatever it may be, but we focus on that uniqueness and perhaps novelty of it. Then we focus on the benefits, which we explain what makes it useful or different in addition to the problem that it solves. So very unlike past, it's not about agitating. It really is sort of as going straight into it being a solution and being new, and therefore the perception might be that it is better. And then after the benefits, what we will go ahead and identify is just the advantages behind it. Because really, when we're talking about features, advantages, and benefits, when we go into the advantages of it, we really are, getting into the benefits. So you could either segment that or do it as, an entire section. I would personally go ahead and compel you to try to break it down as much as you can, specifically at the beginning. And then once you have a little bit of practice, you can go ahead and merge those two items, as I said before. Don't be afraid on trying variations of these that are or may be unique to you. Special note is that it is important to maintain the focus on the positive, meaning on the benefits and not necessarily the features. Why? Because as I said before, benefits is sort of that opposite of agitating. So while we're not agitating a problem and saying how it's, oh my God, it's such a horrible problem to have, perhaps we are focusing on the benefit of this product, meaning this product is so good, it will solve issues with X problem. So it's coming at it at a different angle, but sort of in the same way. But please do keep that in mind so you can go ahead and really, be successful at copywriting. So the next one. Now, this one's a twist on the past formula. But it's normally used on either longer sales pages or just mediums that allow for longer text. And this one's called the pasture. So the pasture focuses on problem, very much like past, then the amplification or agitation of that problem. But then we go into the solution or story, where we use a little bit of storytelling to create some form of the customer being able to identify themselves with this fictitious character that has been created. Or who knows, maybe it's not fictitious, maybe it's a real user case that you've been able to use in your copy. But either way, they have something that they can really identify. Then we go to the transformation and testimonials. And this takes the evidence further and gives it more strength to the argument with real world cases and testimonials. So let's say that, for example, you have a true case study that you have access to on a person who had a problem. And then they found the solution through the use of this product or this service. In the amplification, or I'm sorry, in the solution or story, we would focus on how they solved it, versus in the amplification, where we would tell how bad the problem was for that specific user. Okay, so it would allow us to really go in depth into one part of the problem, or perhaps one problem that we know may be common for all, but that was very specifically, you know, grave for this particular story that we're using. Then we have in the transformation and testimonials, where we take it further and we really just lay it out. So then we have the offer. So then, we move from this storytelling and we move straight into what we could consider our pitch. And this is, positioning the product or service for which we want the reader to give their money for or to pay attention to. Then we have the response, the end of the copy where you tell the reader how to respond to your ad and guide them to your call to action. Easy, breezy, beautiful. So like I mentioned, we have a lot of other different formulas here laid out for you. However, we want you to go in there and really take a look at them. Again, this presentation is downloadable, and we really ask you to go ahead and keep it as a guide for when you're starting this copywriting journey. On behalf of myself and the Tometoo team, very happy to have been here with you today. We hope that this has been useful. And as always, we are available by email or you can contact us through the forum. Have a great rest of the day and we'll see you on the next one.